everyone, so I wanted to make an update of my video. It's been a little while, and it's actually been 5 weeks instead of the 4 weeks I was hoping to stay up to keep everyone updated with. But I have to say a lot of things changed. So if you watch the video from June, starting with the same sort of orientation again, and so you can actually really see that these purple, probably pearl lawn something, succulents have really grown. This guy's really shot up. Before it was just like this one leaf and like a little green nubbin, and then now it's like pretty much a full plant. And then there's also like another offshoot growing here. So I'm really thrilled because like everything started to grow so well, and I was kind of getting discouraged at how slow everything was. And then we're gonna move way down here. You can see more growth. I think the thing too is that I changed the location for the succulents were to somewhere that was facing southeast, and it's really helped out, especially with the sun. Temperature here has been really actually kind of cold for our area, and so my Chinese dunce cap, it's really neat where it started actually, it grew up really tall and then it developed flowers, and it created these offshoots, and I think that's how they actually kind of try their best to spread around. So you can kind of see how they're doing here. My little my little pagoda style plants really growing well here. They're looking really good. I did suffer some loss, so I had this plant here that was doing really well, and then it suddenly died. So I don't know whether or not it's because it doesn't do direct sunlight very well. But here's another Chinese dunce cap. And so again, they just kind of grew, and then part of it died off, but then it started developing like other flowers. So I think it's just the way that they grow. I am concerned that like just because maybe it wasn't in a greatest spot earlier, that like it got really leggy, and now that I've moved it to a much more sunnier spot, you can see that's getting really heavy, but it's also like kind of left behind this really lanky kind of I guess not offshoot, but stem. So I think the only way I could really rectify is by like chopping off the base here again and then planting it, hoping that it roots. But yeah, the growth is really impressive. Like, so for the painted echeveria here, in the earlier video, I have this little stub, but then after that, it just kind of really grew a little flower of its own. There are some that didn't really progress too much. So for instance, this one, I think I could describe this as like a little toe or tooth or something like that. And this one really hasn't grown, but it is certainly rooted in. This one is a jade plant. This one's really grown as well, especially in the past week, which is really impressive. It's really neat to also see the new, I guess the new flower here, and offshoot here, and how different it is from the original mother leaf. This one's had sort of a blue gray kind of look to it, with like little pink tips, whereas the mother leaf looks a lot more green. Here it is in more light. Make our way back up to the very top. And so again, this one hadn't really changed much, but this one has suffered a loss over here in this particular corner. These are doing really well. Like, these kind of look like jelly beans. So maybe they are jelly beans, but they're growing up really nicely. You could tell the parts that were getting a little leggy at one point, and then it's just getting like nice and thicker and fuller at the very top here. So here's another one that's grown really well, but you can also tell that it was leggy at one point, and it was just nice and tight at the very top. So unfortunately, a lot of my plants are like that. So be sure that if you're going to grow succulents and you're going to propagate them, that you might want to start with a sunny window and keep with a sunny window. I started with a sunny window, and then the leaves from the trees outside a sunny window had filled in, and it really produced a lot of beautiful shade, but it also would definitely, I probably should have definitely moved it a lot sooner. So again, another very good example of what happens if you have an unsunny spot, you move the plant to a much sunnier spot. you can see like how big the mother leaf was and how floppy it is, really unstable. So I'm gonna probably have to remove the little leaves once this thing is a little bit bigger and then replant it and hope for the best. I also pointed this, oh actually I think I pointed out this succulent in an early video, and oops, just knocked it off. But you can see that the two parts are growing really, really well. It's a lot thicker. And here is another painted echeveria, doing really, really well. And yeah. And I think this is the Mother of Thousands, again, very late at the bottom, but growing nice and thick at the top. So I have a bunch of other succulents here. This one's really grown. I managed to actually put this on a windowsill earlier, just because it's smaller and more easier to move. And this was just this leaf before, and it's just completely exploded over this part. So I think it's absolutely necessary for me to kind of move the pot this weekend. If you go in here, I have a crassula here, or like a type of jade plant. It's starting to grow, but I think it's starting to get choked out by all the other leaves surrounding it. So I really got to replant these. And I have some seed on here, and it's growing beautifully. It's just so pretty, just so tender and lush. This is, again, another example of what happens if you start off with a really shady area, long stemmy leaf, and then a really nice tight rosette at the very top. So we'll fix that. And maybe that'll be a topic of another video. How do you, I guess, decapitate and replant your plants? So here are my succulents from this other container, and I showed it to you last time as well. It's really grown a lot. So there are a lot of changes with these here. The crassula has grown a little. This one's just falling over because it's so heavy, but you can see that there are 3 little plants growing from this mother leaf here. And these are starting to grow, but they haven't really grown as much as I would have liked since the last video, but that's okay too. Alright, so last but not least, so these guys are doing really well. They have like little chicks coming out of them, and you can kind of see that they're a little bit transparent in some areas. By the way, I'm gonna start. I'll just spin this. So these are my topsy-turvy leaves. They're completely dried out now, so that's good. And well, there's still a little bit in there, but they are completely dried out, and they've also rooted. So you can also see how big they've grown and how quickly they've grown. They've done a really great job growing. I think a lot of it has to do with the weather. It's consistently warm now. It doesn't really drop. It is cold again for this area, but it hasn't really gone below 16 degrees Celsius here. So here's another really well growing plant. And I think those are my aeoniums too, which is a surprise because I heard that they're hard to propagate from their leaves. So a very pleasant surprise. And here we are with some more plants. So I'm just going to spin this one around. I had another one that looked like this, a nice and fat, juicy succulent leaf, but started to rot for whatever reason. I didn't think I overwatered it, but must have. And the entire thing turned black and squishy. It's very obvious when it starts rotting, so. But yeah, I'm really happy to see everything's growing so well. Just gonna spin these bad boys around and then call it a day. Alright, well, have a good one, guys. I think for a lot of these, I will replant them, especially this bunch over here. I will repot them and see how it goes. Thanks. Bye.